Welcome on back and gather round, gang. It's time for some more Total War Warhammer 3. We're here back with some more early access Tides of Torment. Huge thank you to Creative Assembly for providing me with. That way I can show you this Tides content a bit early, and you can make the decision whether or not you would like to purchase it from there. So we are here to show off the Norscan units, as we have just done with the High Elves. So let's get right on to that. I've got a whole suite of lads here. The only one we're not going to be able to show off right now, I'll have to jump into a battle, is the Dreadmaw, because while the Dreadmaw looks awesome, you can even see down here, it just is like a combination of a basilisk even from Harry Potter, and the sandworms from Dune. So it looks awesome, but it starts underground, so a bit bashful and shy. We'll have to get into a fight and have it surface to show off what it actually looks like. But we can show Sayl the Faithless and his many mounts. Indeed, sir. So we've got this tentacled lad. Look at him. He looks incredible. Very unique in terms of Norscan Lord here. He's got the tentacle arm and the corrupted staff of Hermes, and he's carrying around a, I don't know, I guess it's his storytime skull. Whenever he wiggles the storytime skull, everyone's quiet. Sayl the Faithless is a pretty decent wizard. He's got a combination of the Lore of Heavens and Lore of Shadows, which is a devastating combo of damage and debuff spells here. So hated and feared by his own people, Sayl the Faithless holds a unique mastery of the unholy energies that course through the Chaos Wastes. He has low armor, normal speed for a mage, pretty bad combat stats, honestly. He actually has more melee attack than you'd expect for a mage. It tends to be more close into the like 30 mark, and 25 for defense, so he has better stats than your normal mages, but he's not going to be dueling anytime soon. He'll win a fight against maybe other spellcasters, but even that, you should probably keep him in your own lines. Low weapon strength and charge bonus, that's not really what he's there for. He is a proper dangerous mage. You've got the fighter die or standard die split for your Norscan Lord still, which your on campaign I guess we only get, for the custom battles we only get fighter die. His unique ability is going to be one of many. Is going to be a Nightmaw here, where betrayed, torn to pieces, and fused together as one. What was once Sayl's fellow seer apprentices is now something monstrous that awaits beckoning from the shadows. You've got a wind-activated spell that is going to deal a majority armor-piercing damage. It doesn't deal the most, but it is good at kind of just weakening any infantry that are moving in. Very good against anything that's already fighting your Marauders or just any of your other chaff infantry. He also has Skullcane's Teeth, a magic missile activated ability. You got two uses of that. You just go ahead and throw some teeth at some lads, deal some damage. It's not too bad. It deals massive magical damage, good against armor, and strong versus a single combatant. However, every time I use this, it just doesn't seem to deal that much. So I don't know if it's bugged or it just doesn't deal as much as it actually seems here. Flavor text reads, this corpse skin bag contains the sigil-etched teeth of Sayl's former master Skullcane, and other defeated wizards and magical beasts, each a treacherous curse to hurl at his enemies. It will only recharge if there is an enemy in range that has been debilitated, which means they've got some kind of debuff applied to them. Any debuff, it doesn't matter, but as long as they've got one, they're going to count as debilitated, and Skullcane's Teeth shall recharge. For his mixed lore here, you can go ahead and see what kind of spells. We've got the Rare Chain Lightning and Occam's Mind Razor, a Penumbral Pendulum, and your Ranan's Thunderbolt for your uncommon spells, and then Enfeebling Foe and Wind Blast for your commons. And Lore of Heavens has actually undergone a bit of a rework here, so you'll see Wind Blast now has a Windstruck contact effect that's going to drop acceleration speed and charge speed of anyone hit, and there'll also be a little bit of a difference to how they look as well. So I do have a video showing off the changed Lore of Heavens. Go take a look at that if you'd like to see more in detail. He's got wounds, of course. As a Norscan has the Rage passive, so the longer you're fighting in melee, the more resistance you gain, the more leadership you gain, and the more melee attack. Has both the Roiling Skies and Smoke and Mirrors passives. Every time you cast, you gain more speed, and enemies lose it, as long as they're flying. To keep adding onto the pile of his abilities for a passive, we have the Viperous Staff, which grants him the passive to imbue himself with poison, melee damage reflection, and ward save for 12 seconds every time he casts. So you would kind of want to have Sayl be your one and only caster in your army. Let him continuously do the casting, that way he is keeping himself alive with that damage reflection and resistance, and also poisoning those around him. His other passive is going to be backstabbing a sorcery, so again, anytime he casts, any other enemy spellcasters are going to take damage. So it's just a little bit of tick damage to let them know he's there. So the more of your weak spells you spam when there's other casters on the field, just the worst time they're gonna have. Sayl is a absolute nuisance, and that's the best way to put it. You can mount him upon a horse, making him quite a bit faster, but a larger target so easier to hit. You can put him on a chariot, which I absolutely would not do. The ward save, though, when casting is nice for a chariot. I will give that, but it's just not something I would go for. Norscan chariots are just a little bit too light to leave in or throw into really any kind of melee, except for the Ice Wolf chariots, which we've seen are pretty decent. He doesn't have one of those. He just has a normal chariot, and then his best mount, the War Mammoth with the War Shrine. So this is where things get spicy. You've got your War Mammoth, so you actually get quite a bit more armor. He's a much bigger target, of course, but a huge health pool, much more speed, not than the horse or chariot, so you're slower than them, of course, but you're on a great big mammoth, so it's fine. Attack and defense being 34-30 is not great, but the sweeping attacks the mammoths do really make up for that quite a bit. Majority armor piercing damage and 34 bonus V-imagery because of the mammoth with 68 charge bonus. Since you've got that War Shrine now, he has then the Giver of Glory passive, so everyone around shall gain more physical resistance and recharge their stamina as long as enemies and allies are dying nearby. And then he'll also give allies in range 10 more leadership, so you definitely want to mount him up on either a War Mammoth or a horse to keep him safe, or to make him more smashy and a better support. Next up for your generic lord choices, we have the Shaman Great Sorcerer, which you have in 3 flavors: Fire, Metal, and Death. And here is your Fire Sorcerer here. It's got the extra flame motif, color scheme, and effects on the staff, which is awesome. Glad that it's not the biggest difference, as you'll see in a second, but glad there is a difference between them. Your Shaman Sorcerer Great Lord is just your Great Shaman Sorcerer. We'll say it correctly here.
The crow endures.
Game, work with me. A shimmering haze distorts the air around the Shaman Sorcerer, a promise of imminent ritualistic fire, with his enemies as the fuel. Indeed. Low armor, so he's basically just Sayl the Faithless, but a bit weaker. He is your Lord variant of your Shaman Sorcerers, and not meant for melee in the slightest. Not at all. For abilities, we've got Fighter Die or Standard Die, which of course we have Fighter Die here. Their unique gimmick is the Offering to the Gods activated ability, which is a 2-phase which they can target allies with, where the first stage they're going to take damage and some entities will get killed, and then in stage 2, they get a huge boost to their damage and melee attack and leadership. So you target a small target, and you're not able to select any of your lords, heroes, or large targets. It has to be a small entity size unit, and then you sacrifice them to empower them. In true Norscan fashion, whatever cunning pacts and bargains the Shaman Sorcerers pursue, they must seal them with blood. Not theirs, of course. It's very interesting. I haven't had a ton of time to try this out, but we'll have to get in to test a little bit more and see just how effective this is, or if you really want to be damaging your own units at all. Seeing as the Norscans really don't have access to healing. This is, of course, being your Fire Mage has access to the full lore of fire spells, and then the Rage passive as a Norscan, so time spent in combat equals more resistance, or physical resistance, leadership, and melee attack. They can be mounted upon a horse, a chariot, where this is your death version of the sorcerer. You can see just the kind of the color changes, and a little bit of his details change a little bit too. So purple for your death sorcerer, and not as nearly as glowy for their staff. And then you have your metal sorcerer, who is more gold, of course. Be cool if he had a little bit more actual metal to him. I think the staff is metallic. Yeah, the staff is metallic, but maybe this one he's got chains on him too, but maybe wearing a couple of armor pieces would be awesome. Oh, there's iron tips to the, never mind, I think this is great. I'll take it all back. They've armor plated up the bones and then put tips on the antlers. He looks good. Maybe a piece or two of armor on him as well would be awesome, but that's just fine. The Shaman Sorcerer Lords are just that. They are a fine addition to the Norscan roster, alongside your melee Brawler Chieftains. Moving on to our hero options, which we'll start with the one that has put in the most work for me, the Fimir Noble. Groomed by the matriarch of its stronghold since a hatchling, Fimir Nobles boast cunning intellect, overbearing bulk, and the loyalty of their tribes. Your melee-focused version of the Fimir Noble. These are awesome. Very, very good in melee. It's like the great weapon version you can see here, just as a single entity. So very high armor, decent leadership, good speed, and then the magical attacks combined with sundered armor, which is one of the scariest combos in the game. Magical attack, sundered armor, and armor piercing means whatever they decide to punch, it is going to hurt that thing very much. Their low melee defense is one of their one weaknesses with 30, which means whatever hits them is going to have a very high chance of hitting them back, and they're just hoping to mitigate that with their armor. Good charge bonus too, and for abilities they've got Foe Seeker, Deadly Onslaught, as most melee heroes or lords do, and they've got the Favored by the Matriarch activated ability, so you can kick that off, and for 19 seconds you basically have a Horn of Corn around you, buffing up everyone in that range, but you can only use this if the Noble has more than half its health, so you will have to keep an eye on that health bar. He's got wounds, of course, and then the From the Mist passive, so as long as your leadership is higher than 50% of base, you gain 25% missile resistance alongside the 25% you already have, which makes the Fimir so good at absorbing arrows of your foes. They also have the Shrouding Mist passive, which is an area augment, so in 35 meters, everyone around will gain 10% missile resistance and 5 melee defense. This is amazing to pair up with your other Fimir, so if you throw him at the head of a squad of, doesn't matter, Fimir dual weapons or Fimir great weapons, he is going to make them even tankier in the face of missiles, and they can just kind of charge right on into a front line or a flank without worrying about any kind of silly muskets. They also boost in courage, which is very good for keeping your Norscan marauders or trolls or anything else fighting a little bit longer and hide in the forests. We've already noticed their 25% missile resistance, and then they are siege attackers and can cause fear. A very, very good hero that you are going to use quite often in your Norscan campaigns. Our legendary hero for Norsca is going to be Beorg Bearstruck, a terrifying marvel of a werebear even amongst his feral tribe. Beorg has received the Ruinous Power's dark blessings in the most spectacular way. Look at him, he looks gnarly. Completely covered in hair, tattoos, and scars. And just something about him, he looks extremely unnatural. They did a good job with Beorg then, didn't they? In terms of his stats and his role, he's got good armor, decent speed, very good dueling stats, an even split of base and armor piercing with the 20 bonus V large is a pretty good stat package for a duelist, as I've already said here, and he's got 35 charge bonus, Foe Seeker, the Bear Fang Talisman activated ability, which comes from an item, which grants him 40% damage resistance. This ancient yellowed canine tooth is the sacred talisman of the lordship among Beorg's tribe, warding off blows that would otherwise harm its wearer. He has regeneration, which is always good for any kind of single target duelist. He gets to heal up where they will slowly be worn down. He's got wounds, which kick in, of course, as pretty much everyone does. Frenzy for even more damage and melee attack as long as his leadership is higher than base. Guardian to keep his other lords and heroes around nice and safe. Thrill of Battle passive for a boost to his melee defense the longer he is in melee. Beorg is very survivable. And then he's got the Warcry ability, which is a passive augment where, as long as he is charging, all allies in range will gain 24 to their melee attack and defense, and 16 to their leadership, allowing them to smash in and also not take so much damage. So you really, really do want Beorg just going to be running around, dashing into fights to and fro in order to keep this passive going as long as you can, because as long as you are charging, that passive is active for everyone around him. He has Encourage, as most of our heroes do now. He's got Hide in Forest, immune to psychology, and 20% physical resistance, as well as Causes Fear. He's very tanky, has a ton of sustain, and is really, really good at tearing apart other heroes. Or infantry, just doesn't matter. Beorg is excellent at killing. Moving on to our actual units, we have Beorg's tribe, the Marauder Bearmen. The Chaos God's gift has left traces on the way of the Werebear's mark in the Bearmen of Urslo, yet their marauding fury has always been theirs. Think of these guys as a more elite line-holding version of your Marauders. You have 2 or 3 of them in your front line, and they will stick in, and they will actually bite back extremely well. They're really, really good at holding a front line. Again, similar to the Ship's Company, this is a unit that I wasn't really sure what their overall role was going to be because they were so similar in stats to the Marauders. However, after actually using them, they're very good line-holding versions of the Marauders, even better so than their more angry, slightly skittier cousins. So they have more armor at 45. They're more defensively statted and have a chunky 30 weapon strength. Besides that, there's not much different about them. They have 20 less models, and then that heavier armor makes them heavier armor, less models, more health. Makes it so that they stick into fights for a very long time. They've got the rage passive, as all the Norscans do, so longer time in fights means more resistance, leadership, and melee attack. Bearmen are great, and there's all sorts of boosts you can do to make them even stronger. Oh yeah, they also have good old immunity to psychology, so you can't scare a bear. They're going to stare you down all day. Just look how beefy these guys are. They are giants, and they also have armor. They've got helmets. Who would have thought the monkey men could even wear armor? We didn't even know. Next up, though, we have the Marauder Bearmen with great weapons. So the same thing as your previous, just with great big axes to tear you in half with. A little bit more armor to compensate for the fact that they don't have shields. Everything else, though, the same. They're more offensively statted and have a majority armor piercing damage because they've got a great axe. Very, very good at flanking around, and whatever they do throw hands with tends to suffer immensely. They are a early tier infantry, but they have so many different boosts you can give them that it makes them quite good. We'll have a battle showing off just how many boosts you can give them before too long here. I can't spoil too much besides. My next unit is probably my favorite of the Norscan roster, outside of the Dreadmaw, just for the sheer uniqueness and impact the Dreadmaw can actually bring to the fight. The Kurgan Horsemen are very impactful. These are going to be your dual weapon variants, so the Flavor Tex Rees riding with bare steel in both hands. These mounted butchers carve through infantry lines like whirlwinds of carnage, and that they do, and it's because of a very specific trait. They have a combination of Frenzy for more attack, charge bonus, and just damage in general, and then they have Devastating Flanker. So whenever they hit someone in the flank, their charge bonus is doubled. So instead of 40, it gets boosted first by your Frenzy, so it gets 10% more. That bumps it up to 44, and then that gets doubled, which will get up to 88 charge bonus for these guys, which that is just base. Anything else you give them from campaign is going to increase that even more. Kurgan Horsemen, very light cavalry. They move quite quickly, and whenever they do arrive, they bite very hard. 29 melee attack and defense is pretty decent for your light cavalry. And then they have 15 bonus for infantry, so like I said, they get in there, those two axes get to work. They look awesome too. Let's get rid of the UI. My favorite version is the one here. He's got all the different rings, and he's got the Chaos Circle tattooed on the side of his face. And he has the best horse. He's got the good old Zorro horse with the... I don't know if these are Kurgan or Dulgan. Oh, they're Kurgans. They're definitely Kurgan tribal marks. These guys... They're so good, and that is only enhanced by their Great Axe variant, which do lose their anti-infantry, so they won't blend through infantry quite as quick. But if you have any kind of armored Dawi in your way and you don't want them to be there anymore, throw the Kurgan Great Axes in. First comes the charge, breaking lines like brittle rows of straw. Then the Great Axes fall, sundering shields and skulls with frightening ease. And that makes it almost sound like they have sundering attacks, but that'd be far too much. I wouldn't be surprised if they might have started with it, and they just removed it over time. Same stat line as your dual weapon, they just have more melee attack from the start. Actually, no, I think they're the exact same, they just lose some defense. Yeah, they're the same, they just lose defense. And then they have 42 weapon strength that is majority armor piercing, which is going to be boosted, of course, by Frenzy, Rage, and then Devastating Flanker. And then to help things out, they can Vanguard deploy, so wherever you want them on the map, they can be there in a hurry. Oh, you know what? I might have changed my mind. This helmet looks awesome. The kind of a steel skull helm. Yes. Maybe a few more variants of Great Axe, but a unit that I have used to great effect in my campaigns, and they also have capes, because more capes is more better, unless you're in the Incredibles, then no capes. No capes at all. Arriving at the very end of our base roster, we have the Chimera, which is this trio of Murder Parrot, as I've already said, Pokemon, and Murder Bat Hog Monster. And then they brought their snake friend, too. Bringing up the rear, it's the fourth wheel. Chimera are monsters, living emanations of chaos' twisting, ravening power. The Chimera's tri-throated roar challenges only the most foolhardy sorcerer to try to bite into their will. Take the Manticore and then upgrade it several tiers, and then you have the Chimera. They're very highly armored, pretty good speed, and then they've got flaming attacks, magic attacks, and poison, so they're going to drop your your healing in half, cut through any physical resistances, and then also poison you. They're a blast. Decent melee attack. Their defense is even higher than most of your kind of single target duelists at 38, which we can boost up even higher. And then we've got good old weapon strength of 520, majority armor piercing, and then 45 charge bonus, which is pretty decent, especially when you're dropping in on any kind of unsuspecting mage. That just is going to increase the chance that you chunk through their health in a hurry. You better watch out. For abilities, they've got Flaming Breath, which gives Norsca a kind of pseudo Dragon Breath style attack. This acts much more like the Bale Taurus breath, which makes it very good. Whatever you point it at is going to have a bad day unless it's a single entity. Definitely don't want to fire it at single entities. Their last two noteworthy traits are immunity to flanking, which simply states this unit takes no penalties from being flanked. It speaks for itself. It's crazy good. 15% missile resistance and then causes terror, so you can drop them in when someone is low on leadership and watch them flee for the hills like a coward. That's your base game units, though. Next, we'll take a look at... Actually, no, it's not. We've got the Dreadmaw. Because it's hiding here, I almost forgot. Our other Premier unit, which we can't even click on because he's underground. The Dreadmaw. There we go. Even the most terrifying and majestic of beasts are reduced to an abject spectacle by the gaping jaws bursting forth from below. It is actually a lower tier unit, though, than your Chimera. Tier 3. The Dreadmaw simply has more health and more melee attack than your Chimera, which is pretty interesting. So, back to the Dreadmaw. Very decent armor, more of a medium armor though. Good speed at 50, 65 melee attack, which with poison attacks makes them a purely assassin character. 33 melee defense is very bad, so whenever they burst from the ground, if they get surrounded, they are going to feel it quickly. 400 armor, piercing, and weapon strength, or at least 120 and 280. Good spread for sure. Anything that's majority armor piercing is always good for your squad. No charge bonus though, which is interesting. And why they have no charge bonus is because standing in for that is the surface activated ability, where you can have them burst to the ground, say underneath these Kurgan Horsemen, and anything they come into contact with during that explosion is taking some damage, which is awesome. They also have the Poisonous Blood passive, so anything that is striking them is going to be taking some damage right back. They have the interesting passive Survival Instinct, so the second their leadership breaks, doesn't matter if it's the first time they are running, they are going to shatter instantly and they are out of there. Your Dreadworms, or your Dreadmaws rather, they are not fighting in any fights that they think they are going to lose, which is kind of your one and only way of reliably countering them, where if you could just get them into a position where their leadership breaks, you won't have to deal with them for the rest of the fight. They've got Vanguard deployment, so they can set up wherever they want. Stalk, immunity to flanking. Underground, which is a new trait here. The Dreadmaw's underground. It can't be attacked, but neither can it attack in return. 25% missile resistance, siege attacker, and it causes terror because it's a giant sandworm. Of course it causes terror. I also neglected to mention that it does have a range attack, one that is actually fairly dangerous. It has 200 range and then 150 majority armor piercing missile strength, which is also going to poison anyone it comes into contact with, so blasting that acid bile on out and dealing death to any that get in its way. The underground trait here is the most interesting, I think, to me, because we should be able to see this, hopefully, on the Tomb Scorpions over with the Tomb Kings as well, so they can be underground like your Dreadmaw and give them a little bit more survivability and versatility in your fights. We'll have to come on in and edit and add the Cursed Etin twins back in because I forgot our big derpy boys. We've got the old fused twin giants here with the Cursed Etin. They've been all scarred up, and they're wearing a Rhinox in a rather precarious spot. They look awful, but they perform very well. Low armor, very, very high health pool. They've got pretty decent speed for a large unit like a giant. They've got high melee attack, decent defense, and very, very high weapon strength. So they really do act like a giant in combat, that they just have a slightly differing stats there. They have what is going to set them apart from your giants is our kind of couple abilities down here. We've got Tool Personality, first being Betrayer. So there's always one head more perverse and hateful than the other, pushing the Cursed Etin to move with violent, albeit lumbering, zeal. That's going to grant us 15% more speed and charge speed, so we move around faster, and have glorious charge. So whenever we are smashing into an enemy unit, even if it's in the front, charge bonus is both going to be doubled, so it's going to last 20 seconds instead of 10. And also enemy units will take a leadership penalty as if they've been attacked in the flank. Applying flanking penalties even while smashing into the front is so strong. It's noteworthy in and of itself. We've also got Unyielding Assault, so until they drop below 50% health, no matter what kind of hexes or if they get tired, that melee attack rather of 65 or whatever the maximum you get it to, there's no way for that to decrease. So if you increase that with the likes of spells, it should stay up at that astronomical level that makes the Cursed Etin pretty dangerous. The Savage is the other dual personality, which triggers below 50% health. So above 50%, they are a Betrayer, and then below, they are a Savage, which allows them to heal back up above 50% again, but they gain a damage bump with a melee defense debuff. So they are going to lose the Glorious Charge and all the crazy bonuses there, but they're going to hit a bit harder and heal back up above half, so they should get up to Betrayer before too long there. Vanguard deployment gives you lots of options when deploying in battle. 15% missile resist and 25% spell resistance gives them a little bit of protection from those two items. They've got Siege Attacker, of course, and they cause terror. Your other Cursed Etin variant is the Runecaller, which you can see they are definitely infused with the Wind of Shyish at the very least. Oh, make sure he's awake. Oh, a big ol' smack. This one actually has a little bit of hair and is a bit different from your normal Cursed Etin variant here, that has a little bit more health, the melee brawler, better stats, more damage, more charge bonus. However, your magical version has 3 bound spells. We have 1 for Enfeebling Foe, good for whenever they are dueling any kind of high value target. Doom and Darkness for dropping a unit's leadership that is already on the verge of leaving, and then Flock of Doom, which is always good for just dealing a heap of damage to any kind of massed up infantry. Being suffused with magic, they also are going to have magical attacks on their melee attack, of course, 60 and 35, so less by a little bit than the melee version, of course, and then not as much armor-piercing damage, less charge bonus. They are more for casting those spells. They still have Savage and Betrayer, but they've been modified a bit here. So dual personality Savage is the one when you drop below 50% hit points, is going to recharge your health, of course, but also recharge power and your Winds of Magic reserves. So even though they themselves do not actually access your Winds of Magic, they are going to help by charging them up when they drop below half hit points. As long as they're above half hit points, they are going to have the Betrayer passive, which is going to drop their own spell mastery, but negate all magical weapons within the area. That makes your Runecaller Cursed Etin very, very good for pairing up with the likes of Throg, or Skinwolves, or anything that has very high physical resistance, because the Betrayer passive is going to turn that physical resistance into ward save. Moving right along to our Regiment of Renown, we have the Worshippers of the Crow first. These are going to be Marauders with great weapons, and they're all stinkified, as you can see here. They're not taking care of their weapons, they're not taking care of themselves. You can smell them before you can see them, and they're not good at making friends, that's all I'm going to say. They've got low armor, as Marauders do. 35 speed, which actually feels high for Marauders, I can't lie. Decent melee attack at 38, 32 defense, and then 30 armor-piercing weapon strength. They've got poison attacks. They have the Swarm of Flies passive, so everyone in range that is an enemy is going to be losing melee attack, making them a bit more tanky, especially with their Rage passive. And then they've got the Mark of Nurgle, which is just letting you know they have poison contact effect, more health than normal Marauders, and more melee defense with a reduced their melee attack. These are just boosted versions of your Nurgle marked Marauders. They're not bad. They're an interesting regiment of renown for sure, but they're very low and early to earn as they are only tier 2. Not to be left out, we have the Followers of the Great Eagle, representing Tzeentch. From the desolate plains they came, cruel, cunning, and treacherous, and wanting nothing more than to crush their enemies under their great scythed wheels. Yes, indeed. These are Chaos Chariots of Tzeentch, but they're Chaos Chariots of Tzeentch that are flavored for Norsca. They have very good armor, pretty decent speed, flaming attacks, magical attacks, and then the Warp Flame passive, which is very unique for Norsca. This grants a weakness to fire damage wherever they're hitting, and then it drops their armor as well, which is going to be very helpful for all of the Norscan damage dealers, which a lot of them aren't going to actually be packing armor piercing, so this lets them just punch in much more aggressively. And then if you have anything that does fire damage, it's going to be boosted. They've got 36 melee defense, which feels very good for a squad of chariots, and then 18 bonus to infantry with armor piercing damage. They're really not bad in terms of Chaos Chariots, and they are going to be empowering themselves as they smash through with that Warp Flame. They've got the Rage passive, and then the Mark of Tzeentch just lets you know these guys have barrier and magic attacks. Barrier on chariots is always pretty good because it allows them just an extra health bar, an extra bit of protection. or charging in and escaping without losing too much health or even any models before they manage to get out and cycle charge it again. Their third regiment round actually comes from the Slaanesh side of the DLC, and it's going to be the Riders of the Mighty Serpent. These are Marauder Horsemen with javelins, so intoxicated by pre-battle rituals, these serpent-worshipping horsemen seem oblivious to pain and fear, singing, screaming, and charging when undulating battle cries, or with them, rather. So they're going to be singing into battles. They're much like the Ravens, if you've played Banner Saga, so the Slaanesh corrupted Ravens. So they've got low armor, they're basically just Marauder Horsemen, but because they've been marked up by Slaanesh, they are going to be immune to psychology, have a strider so they take no penalties while moving through any kind of terrain, have more physical resistance, for them is 5% more, and then they have more speed as well, so they'll be faster than normal Marauder Horsemen, but I believe only 5, which still is an edge. And then their other uniqueness comes from their abilities. They have Rage like all of the Norscans, and then they have the Battle Songs passive, which is going to increase leadership and grant fear to all allies in the effect range. But that only works if there's an enemy within 100 meters. Extra leadership and the ability to cause fear are always good because there are some cases where you're facing perhaps maybe some undead and you don't have fear yourself. This allows you to be immune to that fear and fight on unhindered by leadership in the face of spooky demons or undead, or if you're fighting the forces of the Empire, now you can scare them off a little bit easier. The Riders of the Mighty Serpent they're Marauder Horsemen, but they're a little bit better. Not bad. Lastly, we have the Blood Shriek Chimera. In the consecrating winds of the summit of the world, the Chimera of Blood Shriek Citadel bathe in the twisting power of chaos. That they do. This one's all purple. It's a purple Chimera. That's how you know it's been bathed in the winds. What makes it special is it has the perfect Predator activated ability. So anytime you need to, you can land them and then go ahead and pop this heal and stock. So they'll become invisible and they'll start healing, and which makes them very good at recovering from duels and then getting back to the next one. So you take someone out, you pop this ability to heal up, and then you get ready for the next fight. Besides that, they're just an elite Chimera, so they do very well in combat. Chimera are excellent single entity duelists, and they're good at kind of bogging down infantry or any other kind of important targets in a hurry too, as well as having the added benefit of having a fire breath to just deal damage before they even arrive. They can soften those targets up and then finish them off quite easily, while not being worried about any kind of flankers. Your Chimera are great, and the Regiment Renown version is going to be even better. That's going to be all your Norscan units, though. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Which is your favorite? Like I said below, I think my favorite is going to be the dual combination of the Kurgan Horsemen and then our Dreadmaw here, which we can't see now, but I've made sure I'll make sure to put in a couple of clips in while we're talking about it. That way you all can see it actually in action, because it looks amazing and is, I would say, one of the scariest units that Norsca can field easily. If you have any kind of missile units, the fact that it can go completely underground and no one can deal damage to it while it's there means there's nothing you can do. It's going to get into your back line and it's going to slaughter everything there. And if you put units back there to try to defend it, it's just going to pop up a little bit further away and shoot them with its impressive range before going back underground if you try to chase it. Dreadmaw are a problem, and I can't say that with any more conviction. Thank you all so much, though, for stopping on by. If you did enjoy the video, please do remember to leave a like for Light God and a sub for the sub bone, and I'll see you all in the next one.